This is the mark sheet of a brilliant student of mine who recently gave the UPSC interview and missed the cutoff by just 18 marks. Take a look at what is going on here and why he missed it. He scored 111 out of 250 in the essay paper, and given his language skill, he should have scored at least 130 or 140 at the very minimum. And also take a look at his score in GS paper 4. These are the two papers for concern for us today, and I'll tell you why. GS paper 4 ethics, he ends up scoring 105 out of 250. Now, this, given his level of intelligence, because I know him very well, I conducted mock interviews with him. I knew he would score well in his interview. He ended up getting 193. So good score as expected. But why? Why these low scores in essay and ethics? It is a common trend I have been seeing for many years. The UPSC will always catch you and it will make you pay for the things which you ignore, for the things which you do not necessarily prepare. These score and many other people who get similar scores get them because they don't prepare for essay and ethics properly like they should. These subjects are not to be taken lightly or to be put in a secondary situation, because this is the end result. After having gone through the entire process, missing it by a few marks is just simply not worth it and so painful. It is heartbreaking to see this happen. Now, I know that he will clear the exam next year and he is smart enough to do it. He's already put in the hard work, but he could have done it this year. That is what irritates me. And he could have easily obtained 40, 50 more marks just from these two papers, essay and ethics alone. And with 50 or 60 more marks that he could have gotten, which he deserved, had he just prepared properly for these two and given them the due attention that they deserve, he would have been in the good ranking. He would have had a good rank. He would probably have gotten the IRS or perhaps the IPS. But this is the case with so many people and it just annoys me to no end. So I would like to put the issue to the rest, and I don't want to see any of this, anything like this happen to any of my students ever again. This missed opportunity is just so painful, not only because you got so far and you were right there at the end finish line and you just missed the thing which was just right there. It was coming towards you. So avoidable. You see, general studies and optional subject, we cannot say the same thing because they can be very competitive, they are very tough, and they are not easy to prepare for. So his score in general studies and his score in public administration, his optional subject, is okay, not great. Obviously, he can improve. But with essay and ethics, those 30, 40, 50 marks were just there for the taking. He should not have missed that. There's another student of mine. He also gave the interview this year. He missed it by 8 marks only. And I knew that his expression skills and language skills were okay, but they needed improvement. I had predicted that he would get around 170 to 180 marks in his personality test. He ended up getting 176. I don't like that I was right in this prediction. I hoped that I was wrong and that he could have received more marks. But again, you see the same trend in essay and ethics. Essay, he gets 133, not bad, but not extremely good also. Could have gotten a bit more. But we'll let that go for now. In ethics, he gets 102. So he leaves 30 marks, 40 marks on the table because he didn't prepare for ethics as well as he could have. Decent marks in philosophy, which is not easy to score in. So you know he's intellectually solid guy and he knows how to do abstract arguments, abstract reasoning, which is exactly the type of essay topics you can expect, these philosophical abstract essay topics which come in the UPSC paper, which is why he ended up getting a decent score in essay. But why not in ethics? 40 marks he leaves on the table and he misses the cutoff by 8 marks. 8 marks. And now he has to do the whole thing again. He will also clear the exam. I know it. And I will make sure, whatever it is in my power to do to make sure he gets it, I will do. But I wanted it to happen this time and it could have for both of them. These are just two examples I am showing you. And in this session, I am going to try and resolve this issue and clarify certain things for all times to come, such that this should not happen to you. Whether or not you mess up your general studies or you make some other mistakes, We can control and curtail that damage. But this particular issue of leaving marks on the table is unacceptable completely. It should not be happening. A reason that it happens typically is because most people just regard these essay and ethic segment as secondary, as not primary. They perhaps start the preparation too late and they are overwhelmed by the anxiety of prelims. They never get around to preparing it and they postpone it, procrastinate it, leave essay and ethics for after the prelims, which is barely enough time to cover because it has become specialized. It requires some training. And I'll tell you a few more reasons why it is the way it is. Take a look at ethics question paper. This is the exact question paper that both of these students would have faced. These are some of the questions that they would have faced and they would have written about. Both of them ended up not scoring well. Life doesn't make any sense without interdependence. We need each other, and the sooner we learn that, it is better for all of us. Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson is a psychologist, and he is primarily attributed with a very important psychological milestone study which he did, in which he suggested there are challenges in the life of a human being, and as a human being progresses, they face certain psychological challenges. In the childhood, they face certain challenges, and how healthy their resolution of the challenge is depends how mature and healthy they end up becoming as adults. This topic that he is referring to, this life doesn't make any sense without interdependence, is a particular challenge in the life span of a human which they face in early adulthood. Isolation versus independence. Isolation versus interdependence. Erik Erikson suggested, and we are not going into the theoretical academic details, I am just giving you some examples to make you realize why they didn't get the marks that they deserved. Erik Erikson had suggested that at some stage in life, all humans face this issue of whether they should be isolated or they should accept that they cannot exist alone and they have to be interdependent. They have to open themselves up for relationships, for cooperation. And the way they resolve this challenge determines how socially healthy they turn out to be, whether they become lone wolves or people who are able to work in teams. This determines their career choices, this determines their intimate relationship choices, and it determines many other factors in life. So it's an important thing, and you cannot answer this question or make some intelligent remarks about things like these without some understanding, some specific knowledge of ethics. And many of these topics you will find. Take the other one, take question number 4. Attitude is an important component that goes as input in the development of a human being. How to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant. Now again, this is a question squarely from the psychological portion of the ethics syllabus. I will show you the ethics syllabus shortly. And there is a particular portion which says attitudes. And you have to have some understanding of what attitudes are. So in ethics, there is an overlap of philosophy, of psychology, and of applied sociology also in many respects. And without some specialized knowledge, you try to attempt these questions, you will end up with 102, 105. That is just the way it is. The marks you see are fair. They are not unfair. They did not prepare specially for this. You need some idea, some knowledge of this at the very least. The third one, take a look at the third one. Take a look at question 4, part B. In case of a crisis of conscience of emotional intelligence, in cases of crisis of conscience, does emotional intelligence help you overcome the same without compromising the ethical or moral stand that you are likely to follow? Critically examine. Again, emotional intelligence is squarely a topic of conversation from the field of psychology. It is extremely important and it penetrates many areas. Now, interesting tangent is that this issue of emotional intelligence is so central that it forms a discussion in many essay topics also. Obviously, it appears in the ethics paper because it is one of the key components of good leadership. There is no good leader without emotional intelligence, whether that leader is an ethical leader or an unethical leader. Even the unethical ones have high emotional intelligence. How emotional intelligence is used, whether it is used to manipulate other people or it is used to uplift other people, is determined by the ethical structure of the leader. But anybody who is a charismatic leader, who's a transformational leader, has high levels of emotional intelligence. You need to know what emotional intelligence is. Emotional intelligence, to put it briefly, is the ability of a person to understand the language of emotions. That includes understanding your own emotions, of how you are feeling. If you are feeling very angry, emotional intelligence means you can take a step back, you can recognize that you are feeling angry, you can control it. You don't get swept away in it. That's a sign of interpersonal emotional intelligence. An example of intrapersonal emotional intelligence is you see somebody in pain, you see somebody in distress, you see that somebody has walked into your office and is sweating, they are nervous, they are afraid, they need help, and immediately you can spot it in the other person. That is an example of emotional intelligence. Also, your ability to perceive the emotion of the other person, to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, and to act accordingly. This is the bare minimum theoretical part of emotional intelligence. This topic cuts across many areas and it forms the subject matter of many case studies. I will show you one example of a case study which was asked in the ethics paper, which is a very good example of applied emotional intelligence. Take a look at this case study, just asked very recently in the UPSC paper. You are heading the rescue operations in an area affected by severe natural calamity. Thousands of people are rendered homeless and deprived of food, drinking water, and other basic amenities. Rescue work has been disrupted by heavy rainfall and damage to supply routes. The local people are seething with anger against the delayed, limited rescue operations. When your team reaches the affected area, the people there heckle and even assault some of the team members. One of your team members is even severely injured. Faced with this crisis, some team members plead with you to call off the operations, facing threats to their lives. In such trying circumstances, what will be your response? Examine the qualities of a public servant which will be required to manage the situation. This case study puts you in the shoes of a emotionally intelligent, ethical leader. Look at the wordings carefully. Seething with anger, fear, these are emotions. An emotionally intelligent response to this case study would be that you write and you mention that the anger of the people is not unjustified. That at the time that they really required, they feel abandoned by the government or by the authorities. They feel that they were not taken care of during times which were the worst, which is the least that they expected from the authorities. Their anger is not unjustified at all. In the same way, the fear of the team which is supposed to go into that area and make amends is also not unjustified. They are justified in feeling fear. What is required is that a leader step up, and that leader is you, by the way, in this situation. The leader step up and have the courage to say that we are sorry, to put their own ego aside, to really step up and bring the fear of the people down. That on the one side, you need to really placate people and really genuinely empathize and sympathize with them. And once you feel their pain, another emotionally intelligent idea would be to let them vocalize their grievances. Let them speak. Let them say what they feel. You see, because once people express, they become less anxious, and less repressed with their emotion. All of this bottled up anger that they have, let it be released in a healthy way, in a healthy conduit. Open a dialogue. Let them say how they feel, what they feel. Have the courage to say we are sorry. Have the courage to explain to them why you were not able to reach there, and it was not in your control, that the same natural calamity that had affected them had affected the roads, had affected your own team, could not reach. It is hard to bargain with Mother Nature. It's a natural calamity. The other side of the emotionally intelligent response would be to talk to your subordinates. Let them vocalize their fears. Let them say what they wish to say. They will say that we are afraid, sir, we don't want to go there. It might be a risk which is not worth taking. We have been threatened for being killed or being injured or whatever their fears are. Let them vocalize their fears are not unjustified. Show to them, display to them that you are willing to step into the fire and that you have opened a channel of communication with the people who require this assistance, and that now things are getting much better, and even when there is some danger, it is our duty, it is our job, it is our moral obligation to get this important rescue material to the right people. So you are not only motivating them, you are giving them good intelligent reasons to go and do their duty, but at the same time, it's not just empty words. You have taken time and effort to reduce the danger to their lives, and they should be able to see this. That is the response that you need to give to a case study like this. Now you go see a case study like this, and if you write something general, something from common sense, we should do this, we should do that, and you write a bunch of points, it is not going to impress anyone. And it is not a surprise that you get 102, 105, 93 or something like that, walk out with 40 less marks than what you could have gotten. Unbelievable and unjustified and completely unacceptable. And I would like that never to happen to anybody. These are the type of questions you will face in ethics, case studies, and some important theoretical conceptual thing. You see, ethics is not general. Ethics is a highly developed field now. It is in the intersection of philosophy and very hardcore philosophy, which is called value theory. Professional philosophers who go in that direction are ethicists. They define ethical policies. It is that is their job, and that is a full-fledged academic field. It is not something to be taken lightly, and it cannot come to anybody's mind just through general knowledge alone, right? And so you will find topics like emotional intelligence, ethical leadership. You will find some very particular initiatives of the government which you have to know, which you cannot miss. You need to know about Operation Karma Yogi. You need to know about ethical governance. You need to know about the main strands of thinkers which have influenced the thinking, not only in India but abroad. And with this knowledge, and then the applied part of that knowledge, which will be very useful in case studies, with some practice you need to do. And also, again, and this brings me to essay. You cannot write very well answers to these questions without having some power of expression. You see, you are being asked to write this in 150 words. 150 words is barely anything. I might have spoken 150 words just when I was describing the question to you. 150 words means you're very selective. You need a very precise understanding to choose the right words. It is harder to filter and say something in less amount of words than to say it in large amount of words. Okay? And with that power of expression, it brings me to this essay, previous year question paper, and this is the question paper that both of these students would have faced. They would have done either one of these essay topics. I have had discussion about these, but notice how the same strands, how the same type of content gets repeated in essay also. The process of self-discovery has been technologically outsourced. Your perception of me is a reflection of you. My reaction to you is an awareness of me. Squarely a essay topic of emotional intelligence is this one. Square. If you know about emotional intelligence, and if you know what this is, between the difference between awareness of your own emotions, which is self-awareness, which I just described a few minutes ago, and the awareness and appreciation of the emotions of others, you are in a good position to create some very good content for this essay. Now, this is a essay and not a topic of ethics. So although the content is the same, content might be similar. You can use the content of one into the other and vice versa. But the way to write an essay is a little different from writing answers. This is 1,200 words on this topic, and by that, the examiner expects you to cover almost all the dimensions of it. Again, this is not doable with common sense alone. This is a skill. It's a neuromuscular skill of writing and expression. And it becomes even harder because you cannot edit it like a Word document in the exam. Once you write it on paper, the only option for you is to cut it and then write it again. And you know that leads to an untidy mess. You don't want that. But just to even get started, to have the correct type of content and to be able to organize that content, how do you do that? That requires some training. It cannot be just done a week prior to the exam or done after the prelim. It should be done beforehand. But when they are done together, they give you an enormous advantage. They feed on each other. The content of essay, of ethics, is squarely used in essay. The expression and organization of the ideas which you will learn in essay is perfectly suitable for ethics and also for other optional subjects, but more so in ethics. Because in other subjects like GS and optionals, the knowledge part, the intellectual part can become very fine-grained, very tuned to the topic. So knowledge becomes more important. But in ethics, expression remains highly important. Obviously, in essay, expression is very important. But in ethics, it remains extremely important also. So you combine them, you combine essay and ethics, and you do them properly. Not only do you save time, you will have 1 plus 1, which is not equal to 2 but 11 when they are done together and when they are done properly. What is the syllabus for ethics? And of course, you can download this from the UPSC notification. That is clear enough. It says clearly ethics and human interface. This is the theoretical part, the initial part of the ethics paper. Human values, lessons from the lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers, administrators, the role of family, society, educational institutions in inculcating values. Attitudes, content, structure, functions, its relation with thought and behavior, moral and political attitudes, the social influence and persuasion. I am expecting at least one question on persuasion and social influence this time. I am expecting a question on behavioral economics. I am expecting a question on nudge theory this time from ethics. And I believe that it is a golden opportunity. You capture this stuff, and if you capture it properly well enough, that is just a bonanza, and it's out there for the taking. And also, none of this takes a very long time to accumulate. You don't need to be a psychologist or a student of psychology to learn this stuff. Again, if you look at the second last point, probity in governance, and if you look at the syllabus and the point above that, public, civil service, values and ethics in public administration. Here, there is an overlap with public administration. Second ARC report, Santhanam committee report, all of these particular content are important for answering these properly. And there are initiatives which are being taken by the government in recent times also, which you should be aware of. You should be aware about. The initial topics, the first 4 or 5 of them overlap with either philosophy or with psychology or with sociology. The other ones will overlap with either public administration or polity, and case studies on all of the above. So case study will be a mixture of various things and testing your understanding of all of these. I have already demonstrated how attitude and emotional intelligence has already been asked, and these students who missed the cutoff by a few marks tripped it up completely because of that small issue. The essay syllabus is very simple and it doesn't say much, but it is highly important to understand what they are saying, because the UPSC is directly telling you what they are looking for. They are saying that candidates may be required to write essays on multiple topics. They will be expected to keep closely to the subject. to arrange their ideas in orderly fashion, and to write concisely. Credit will be given for effective and exact expression. Very clear. 5 things are said. Exactly 5. 1. There may be multiple topics. So first of all, you need to choose which topic to attempt, which topic not to attempt. There is a thing called decision matrix, which I designed, which will really help you to figure out very quickly in the exam which one is worth doing. That is also a problem which people make. And maybe the student A who got 105, 111 in essay or whatever may have picked a topic which was not suited for him. Maybe. All of these look general, but they are not general. And out of all of these questions, the most dangerous topic is topic number 4. The real is rational and the rational is real. It is a statement by a very difficult philosopher to understand, Hegel. It is a statement by Hegel, and it is a statement which explains his entire philosophy of dialectics. I will not get into the technical philosophical debate of his philosophy, but it is a very difficult, convoluted philosophy which, if you have some appreciation for, some understanding for, only then you should have attempted, to be very honest. And that decision matrix could have told you very quickly and instantly which one is to be done and which one is supposed to be left. So back to syllabus. 1, there will be multiple topics, so we need to make sure we pick the right one, or at least we don't pick the wrong one. That is a horrible mistake to make. I have made that mistake myself in one of my attempts, and I had to pay very heavily for it. Very heavily. Something like that happened to me. Although I cleared the exam and got a rank that year, it could have been a much better rank if I have not made that stupid mistake. But anyway, you are here to learn from my stupid mistakes so that you don't make them. The other thing the UPSC is saying here in very clear terms is that you will have to keep closely to the topic. Second thing, keep closely to the topic. Do not go on tangents. Address the topic. To address the topic, you need to first understand the topic. So for instance, your perception of me is a reflection of you. My perception of you is an awareness of me. If you understand that it is about emotional intelligence and that there are various 2 types, and you need to have some discussion about it, and then you can put in some examples and you can have an intellectually good debate and have it covered in all dimensions, it will end up being a good one. Instead of you going on tangents, don't go into COVID-19 in that essay necessarily. I mean, if it fits perfectly organically, that's a different story. But you don't have to push something in forcefully just because you had the idea and just because you had to fill those 1,000-1,200 words. If you do that, if you write it like that, you will get around 45 to 50% marks in the essay. Guaranteed. Maybe even less, but not more. If you are getting anything more than 55-60% marks, it means you not only understood it, you really understood it deeply and you organized it very nicely so that it covered all the things and your understanding of the topic will be reflected. It will not be hidden. Anybody who reads it will be able to tell, okay, this guy knows this topic. He is not just fluffing. He's not just bluffing and, faffing around with some generic commonsensical topics which he is trying to get by with. That is what most people end up doing anyway. So other thing that they are saying is that it has to be organized in an orderly fashion. And of course, they are talking about structure. They are talking about a flow of arguments. They are talking about a flow of narrative in the essay. That when you start with something, you may discuss the negative side of it, you may discuss the positive side of it, but you don't jumble things up. And you don't write an essay like a stream of consciousness. Like you just keep writing whatever comes to your mind. As long as it's relevant, I'll just write my thoughts and that will be an essay. That's not an essay. That's some ramblings of your opinions at most. An essay is you really thought about it, you put it down in some rough work format of some kind, then you organized it, then you thought about it again, then you organized it a little bit more, then you put it in 1,000-1,200 words, and then it reads very nicely and it flows from the topic to a good conclusion. Of course, that requires a complete discussion, and I had to write a complete book about it to get to the details and the various steps which are involved in getting to the whole thing. So in fact, then what is exactly your roadmap? How do you plan to do this? So first of all, I've already suggested, do them together. There is nothing you can do in ethics alone and essay alone which cannot be done together. They should be done together. Prepare the content together. The content is hugely overlapping, highly overlapping. The content in both of the subjects is not specific to the subject itself. It borrows from philosophy, psychology, public administration, sociology. Use that. And the content for essay and ethics is not as specific as the content for general studies, in which they may ask you a very pinpointed question about some climate agreement. And if you don't know about the climate agreement in GS, then no matter what your organization of ideas, you will not get marks. Not the case with ethics, not the case with essay particularly. So that needs to be trained and it cannot be done easily. I will give you a brief glimpse into how to deal with philosophical essay topics. How to deal with philosophical essay topics. A technique called dimensional analysis can be used. What are dimensional analysis? What does it mean? What are the dimensions? This parable of the 6 blind men and the elephant is a good example. Imagine that the elephant is your essay topic. Imagine that the elephant is your essay topic. This is a very old ancient parable. In fact, it is used in Buddhism also to describe the nature of truth. But for our intents and purposes, we will consider it as the essay topic and we will assume that an essay topic may have many dimensions. What are the dimensions? There are 6 essential dimensions. These are called STEPE dimensions. STEPPE. Spiritual, temporal, economic, philosophical, psychological, ethical. What it means is that you can take any essay topic and you can analyze it from all of these 6 dimensions. 100% of the time, the essay topic will be coming from one of these dimensions mainly. But only writing about one dimension may not be enough. Let me give you an example. I told you there are 6 possible dimensions to analyze a topic from which essay topics may come. And only from these will they appear. We can arrange all of these into one of those dimensions. Which dimension do you think this first question should fall in? Primarily, this process of self-discovery has now been technologically outsourced. Self-discovery. It may either fall in philosophical or it may fall in psychological. Primarily. But while we discuss this process of self-discovery, it is not complete. Our discussion is not complete in the essay without us referring to and mentioning something about the ethical dimension also. That yes, the process of self-discovery is a psychological process and children go through phases of understanding and through hit and trial or through environment or through society or through peers and school and culture and all that, and maybe even genetics, they come to understand who they are, and this perception is moldable, it keeps on changing from time and so on and so forth. And that is, now technology has come in, and with all the feedback that it is coming, the psychometric testing, the smart watches, the biofeedback and blah blah, it is becoming even more easy to get information about oneself which otherwise people did not have access to earlier. But a very large part of that self-discovery is the ethical understanding of how to behave in this universe, in this world. What are the values? That cannot be technologically outsourced. No technology can outsource ethics. So that discussion should come in this topic. Just to illustrate as an example that many dimensions are there, it will come from one of the dimensions. It will cover 2 or 3 dimensions. Which dimension is this fifth topic, for example? Fifth topic, which dimension do you think it belongs to? The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. This topic essentially refers to a poem. It is the title of a poem, and it talks of the feminine force. It talks of the motherly force of the universe. Mother Nature is referred to as feminine. The ocean and the fury of the ocean, for example, is always referred to as feminine. The ocean was furious that day. She was angry. She was tumultuous. It falls in the philosophical dimension primarily, right? But it is not complete without our discussion of some psychological dimension also. We have to talk about how parenting styles determine the personality of the individual. We have to talk about the economic dimension also. How and why? We have to say somewhere in our essay that the hand that rocks the cradle does not rule the world, at least when it goes into the workforce. Why is it that in the world, women are paid less than men in almost every job that they do, universally? Why is there a universal glass ceiling for women? Why is the entire system built, designed to favor men a little more than women? All these discussions, although they are topics of debate and one can argue for years, but the fact that you touched upon that will go to your credit, and that will form a really good essay. I hope that my illustrations and my discussions are throwing some light on you, and they are beginning to clarify certain things to you. This is an essay topic from the previous year. Life is a long journey between being human and being humane. A prime example of a direct question from ethics. We have discussed this question even in this past 36 minutes in various ways. Life is a long journey between being human and being humane. You already, just by these past 36 minutes, know enough about this to write well about it. You know that it is primarily from the ethical dimension. But you also know that you cannot complete the essay without talking about the psychological stages of development a little bit. Yes, you also know that it is a very good idea to perhaps insert some issue of technology and how ethics cannot be outsourced. That goes to strengthen your argument that life is indeed a long journey between being human and being humane. I have written a model essay which I will link. You can go through it. It will give you some idea. And that brings me to the end. I don't want to overload you, but I do want to make sure you realize and that you are sufficiently alarmed, sufficiently alert to the fact that if you are ignoring these two, you are risking the entire attempt. At the end of it, the whole thing will start again. Don't do that to yourself. Get it over with, prepare it properly. Whichever way you want to prepare it, just prepare it and get it over with. For everybody who has given the prelims and for everybody who will give the prelims next year, the perfect time for preparing these is now. Get it over with. It should take no more than a month or a month and a half. 1 plus 1 in essay and ethics is not 2, it's 11. We are talking about 60-70 more marks in the mains. 60-70 more marks in the mains means you may end up at the top of the list. It also means it can compensate if you mess up your optional subject or if your GS is not that great. It's a huge strategic advantage. I cannot overstate this, and you are smart enough to understand the implications and the stakes because they are your stakes. They are high. I expect you to appreciate that, and I will not repeat that again. While we go ahead with the rest of our discussions, we will get into the specifics of these. I hope that you have taken these insights to heart. I hope that you are sufficiently alarmed, sufficiently jolted out of any illusion which you might have had about these two subjects. I want to make sure that 300 marks from these two subjects you should get. 300. Combine them. 150, 150, perhaps some extra in one, some 160, 140. Anything of that ratio is acceptable. Nothing less than that should happen to you. It's doable. It will have a very powerful overlap. It's very intellectually stimulating. And I should have mentioned this before. It is directly useful in interview. These skills of conversation and these intellectual debates in essay ethics directly relevant in interview. Sooner or later, the discussion always goes there. Always. With that, I'll leave you and I'll see you next time.